Okay, so you probably read the title of this video and either came here because you're quite pissed off and want to hear what I have to say, or you're not, and you're just interested in what I have to present to you. So, it's something that I realized not too long ago, and it's not necessarily hugely original or new, but I have a new way of explaining it that I think could be helpful. And it's basically that a lot of you who don't believe in God, and if you do, you might want to, use these arguments to some of your atheist friends, and if you don't, you might want to hear me out for a minute. Or you don't believe in frankly anything, aren't doing so because you genuinely think you've found the truth, or some meaning in life, or you found lack of meaning in life. Is most of you haven't even tried applying the discipline of reason to your problems or any problems that cross your mind far enough to necessitate any meaning in anything, right? So if you had done this, you would have realized that meaning must exist. A value or meaning or purpose in things must exist simply because it's necessitated by existence. And I'll get into why it's necessitated by existence in a minute, but even if we ignore that for now and just go with ignore it for now and just go with it, you can ask the questions of why you haven't done so, and it's pretty clear why you haven't done this, and it just comes from pure laziness. Because you claim that God doesn't exist, for example. Let's just go with this. You claim God doesn't exist, which means that our world, everything that exists, wasn't created by anyone. It was not created by anyone. It happened by random chance or whatever cause you may attribute to it. That was the cause. Either way, there is no higher power. There is no intelligent mind behind all this, which means that nothing means anything, and we're just slightly intelligent atoms with no purpose whatsoever, no end whatsoever. Now, if nothing matters and everything is without meaning, then there's absolutely no point to anything. And leaving it even at that, it already makes sense why you haven't done what I said and applied reason to your problems far enough to find meaning. Because if absolutely nothing matters, then there's absolutely no point in nothing, right? And nothing means anything. So, you might as well do nothing and just get on with your life. Right? That could be where your logic took you if you are an atheist, but that same logic also logically means that there's also no point in not doing something, right? And this is why none of you have tried applying reason, because it's a lot easier to not do anything and just live with accepting that nothing matters than trying to find meaning and actually doing a difficult disciplined task to even if it doesn't matter. You could have done it. You could have just looked into it and seen, try and apply some philosophical discipline into your life, and just try and look, even if it doesn't matter. Because what's the worst that could happen? You find out that nothing matters. You find out that it's all pointless, and you get on with your life. That's supposedly what your life was already consisting of, nothing mattering anyways. But you didn't even attempt to try it. You didn't even attempt to try and prove God or prove any sort of anything to yourself because you're comfortable believing that nothing matters, and you don't want God to exist ultimately. And why don't you want God to exist? Because you don't want to be held accountable for the things you do. You're scared of it. You're not scared that you won't find anything. You're not scared that if you look down the line of all your problems and try and keep finding meaning until you get to the very end and find no meaning at all, you're not scared that it'll be a waste of time, that you did all this work ultimately to come to the same conclusion that you were already at, which is nothing matters. You're scared that it will work. You're just scared that you will find something, and that's why you still haven't done it. And what will happen if you do find something? Well, you're now no longer what I call blissfully ignorant, or what anyone would call blissfully ignorant, or enlightened, in your words. You're now held accountable, because if you dare prove God to yourself, you now understand this, and it's quite hard to deny something you've managed to rationally prove to yourself. You're scared that it will work. You're scared that you might have to stop living in that blissful ignorance that I described, even though your supposed logical truth, was just dismantled by me. You're scared about that. And, maybe you want to hear my argument about, why meaning is necessitated. And I could just describe it now, which is because everything that we've ever seen created, anything that we've ever seen begin to exist after our own existence, so things that we've created, everything around me, everything in this room that has been created by humans, has had a beginning, has had a creation point, and that creation point was caused by someone creating it with intent and with meaning. Even the things with trivial meanings still have them. Even weird modern artworks that look like they have no meaning at all were created by someone, either to make money, which was their purpose and meaning, or to, intrigue some weird abstract thought in your head, even if you don't understand it. Everything has meaning, at least as we've observed. Everything that has ever begun to exist has meaning. Yes? So you can't apply a rule of no meaning whatsoever to some things and not apply it to other things. So essentially what it's saying is everything we've ever seen begin to exist has meaning because we've given it meaning. Intelligent beings have assigned meaning to the things we've created, the things that have begun to exist. But the things that we haven't seen begin to exist have no meaning at all, even though they do exist. But everything we've seen that has begun to exist has had a creator. But since we didn't see the creator create the things around us that already exist, because they had to begin to exist, because we know scientifically, because a lot of you, are very scientific, we know scientifically that the world was created, that it had a beginning, it had a beginning point. It's not eternal. It hasn't existed for always. There is a given date for the Big Bang, although I don't remember it because I don't really concern myself with it that much. We understand scientifically and, even theologically that the world had a beginning. We always knew that the world had a beginning. All the monotheistic religions, and especially the Abrahamic religions, all understand that the world began to exist at some point. But everything that has began to exist, as I just said earlier, has had a creator to let it begin to exist. And what you're doing is, by accepting that some things, begin to exist because someone created them, you're also then just cherry picking it and not attributing it to the most complex thing that has ever began to exist. Because we know it's began to exist. We know the Big Bang happened at some point, and the entire universe was created with all its different galaxies and stars and planets, and eventually us. We know that started at some point, so it began to exist. And we also know everything that we've ever seen begin to exist as well has had a creator, but you deny him. And I explained earlier why you do that is because if you did apply this reason, you would have realized that, a meaning is necessitated because of what I just explained. So really, you're just lazy of accountability, and that's basically it. If you're atheist, you can challenge me if you want to, but the point is clear. It's pretty rational, and if you're not, maybe use some of these arguments to try and convince some of your friends, or don't. It's really up to you. I just wrote all this down, had this whole thought experiment that I went through, and I wanted to explain it. And if the explanation wasn't perfect or anything, I'm sorry about that. I got kind of heated with it, but I hope this helped you. And even if this struck you in some kind of way and you don't believe in God, maybe you will look into it a little bit. And if you do, I'm telling you, you will find something. And it's really just a question of whether or not you're ready for that, whether or not you're ready to accept extra responsibility in your actions, moral responsibility for the things you do, So that's ultimately all I have for this one. Have faith and keep going, my friend.